Usually, when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this underlying expectation of precision. Like it's almost like mechanical engineering.
Right, exactly, like fixing a car.
Yeah. You fall, you break your arm, the X-ray machine spits out an image with this jagged white line, and the doctor just points at it,
And there's the problem.
right? There's the problem. You put a cast on it, the bone knits back together, and boom, you're cured.
It's a very comforting, binary way of looking at human health. It's either broken or it's not.
Yeah, totally.
The problem is isolated, it's visible, and the protocol is completely standardized.
But the moment you step out of the orthopedics ward and into the world of, like, neurodevelopment, trauma, and specifically addiction, that X-ray machine is just utterly useless.
Completely
You
useless.
can't take a snapshot of a craving.
Yeah.
You can't put a cast on a personality shift.
Yeah, you really can't.
We're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is incredibly murky. Which brings us directly to the source material we are unpacking today for this deep dive.
And it is a fascinating one.
It really is. We're looking at a framework laid out by a practitioner named Osman.
Also known as the blind Muslim yogi.
Right, the blind Muslim yogi.
Yes.
And he's tackling one of the heaviest questions in modern healthcare, which is, can ancient practices, specifically yoga, meditation, and energy healing, actually overcome drug addiction?
And what makes his framework so compelling isn't just the question itself, but the sheer defiance of his answer.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you spend like 5 minutes looking at the modern alternative wellness space, you are just bombarded with absolute claims.
Oh, the marketing is relentless.
It really is. It's an industry built on this premise that traditional medicine is toxic, and that if you just buy this specific course or drink this green juice or align your chakras, you can just bypass clinical science entirely.
You can just magically cure any ailment.
Exactly.
You expect the pitch, right? You expect the guru to say, Western medicine has failed you, but I have the secret.
Right. Hand over your credit card.
Yeah. But Osman, who, by the way, has 50 years of experience as an energy healer and yoga teacher, he starts his video with a completely unapologetic, resounding answer.
He really pulls no punches.
No, he doesn't. You ask if his methods are the ultimate cure, and he says no and yes.
I love that. He deliberately fractures that either-or mentality.
He does. He doesn't position his life's work as a replacement for clinical science.
Right. He positions it as this non-negotiable missing puzzle piece for long-term recovery.
And just to give you some quick background before we really get into the weeds here, because his biography is wild.
Oh, it's incredible.
So he attained his first samadhi experience by the age of 19.
Which is just, for those who know about yogic traditions, hitting samadhi at 19 is staggering.
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
And he studied extensively from various schools of thought from the Far East, the Middle East, the West.
He's integrated so much knowledge.
Yeah, and currently he practices a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a day, just sharpening the sword, as he puts it.
And he used to practice up to 18 hours a day in certain stages of his life.
18 hours. I complain about sitting at my desk for 8.
Right. It requires an unbelievable level of discipline.
And one super important detail for you listening as we go through this deep dive, Osman is permanently blind, but only since May 2023.
That's a crucial point to remember.
Yeah, because in his videos, he uses all these really vivid visual descriptions.
Right. And you might wonder, wait, how is a blind man describing this so perfectly?
Exactly. It's because he had his eyesight as a normal person for his entire life, right up until May 2023. So his whole framework of the world is still highly visual.
That makes total sense. And it really informs how he communicates these complex ideas.
So back to his no and yes answer. This forces us to look at the mechanics of addiction differently.
Because before Osman even touches on treatment, he fundamentally redefines what the disease actually is.
He has to, right?
Yeah, if we don't understand the specific architecture of the problem he's targeting, his whole protocol won't make any sense.
Right. And his definition is where we need to start. Because he completely sidesteps the legal and societal definitions we usually rely on.
He defines addiction as the exact point where a habit digs into a change in personality.
That phrase is so powerful. Digs into a change in personality.
It completely decouples the concept of addiction from the substance itself.
Yeah. It moves the diagnostic criteria away from what you are consuming and focuses entirely on what the consumption is doing to your prefrontal cortex.
Right, which is the part of the brain responsible for executive function, impulse control, and essentially your identity.
Your whole personality.
Exactly. When a habit begins to override your prefrontal cortex, your personality literally shifts. Your baseline priorities reorganize themselves around getting that specific stimulus.
And because he defines it by that structural change in the self, he radically broadens the scope of what we are dealing with.
He really does.
Like when society hears the word addict, we have this very specific, usually highly stigmatized cinematic image in our heads, you know?
Yeah, the illicit street drug user.
Right. But Osman just flattens that hierarchy entirely. He groups illegal street drugs right alongside legal pharmaceuticals, like prescription painkillers.
He includes alcohol and cigarettes, too.
And crucially, he puts everyday behaviors on that exact same spectrum. Things like excessive eating, binge eating, and sugar consumption.
Which is huge. He is dividing addiction into two highly distinct components: the physiological dependency of the body and the psychological dependency of the mind.
Yeah.
And by placing sugar on the same psychological spectrum as narcotics, he is completely dismantling the moral failing argument that society projects onto drug users.
Okay, but we have to stress test that comparison.
Sure, yeah. Let's dig into it.
Because on a practical level, equating a sugar habit to a heroin addiction sounds almost offensive to someone who has, say, lost a family member to opioids.
I can completely understand why someone would react that way.
Right, because eating a dozen donuts is not going to cause your respiratory system to shut down.
No, it's not.
And it doesn't cause the immediate, violent, societal fallout of heavy narcotics. So how does that comparison actually hold up under a microscope?
Well, if we look at the immediate sociological impact or the acute lethality, they're obviously vastly different.
Right, night and day.
But Osman is looking at the underlying neurological mechanics. This actually reminds me so much of the Huberman Lab podcast.
Oh, Andrew Huberman's show, yes.
Yeah. Specifically, there are 3 episodes of Huberman Lab that just perfectly validate what Osman is saying here.
Which ones?
So first, there's the famous episode Huberman did with Dr. Anna Lemke.
The author of Dopamine Nation.
Exactly. Dr. Lemke breaks down how dopamine is often misunderstood as just the pleasure chemical.
But it's not, is it?
No, it's actually the craving and motivation chemical. And she explains how modern society has basically engineered everything from smartphones to high fructose corn syrup to hijack the system.
Right, causing this massive spike.
Yes. And when a person consumes highly refined sugar, it triggers this unnatural spike in dopamine in the nucleus accumbens, the reward center.
And then the brain panics. Right.
Basically, yeah. The brain, seeking homeostasis, responds by downregulating its dopamine receptors.
So it basically numbs itself out to handle the flood.
Exactly. And Huberman also had Dr. Robert Malenka on the show discussing the reward circuitry of the brain. Dr. Malenka went deep into how neuroplasticity works in both directions. You can wire your brain for positive habits, or you can literally wire it to demand a destructive substance.
Oh.
And the third Huberman episode that comes to mind is the one with Dr. Matthew McDougall talking about brain stimulation and how deeply entrenched these neural pathways become.
So the neuroadaptation is real.
It is intensely real. The next time you eat that same amount of sugar, you don't get the same neurochemical reward. The baseline has shifted.
So you need more of the stimulus just to feel normal.
Precisely. And the exact same mechanism, the downregulation of receptors and the hijacking of the amygdala's stress response, happens with opioid use.
Just on a much more violent, aggressive scale.
Exactly. The mechanism is identical. The velocity and the amplitude are what differ.
It's like comparing a slow, unnoticeable termite infestation to a house fire.
That is a great analogy.
The speed of the destruction is totally different. The visibility is different. But the structural integrity of the house, the change in personality that Osman points to, is being systematically dismantled in both scenarios.
That's a much more accurate way to look at it, because we normalize the termites, you know?
We really do. We joke about needing our sugar fix.
Or being completely addicted to caffeine just to get through the workday.
Yeah, we structure our entire modern economy around microaddictions to our smartphones.
But the underlying psychological hooks are operating on the exact same neural pathways that we criminalize in other contexts.
Osman is stripping away the legal classifications and asking a purely functional question.
Which is this habit overriding your agency?
Yeah. And this actually ties perfectly into some of the conversations on the Joe Rogan show.
Oh, Joe Rogan has covered this extensively.
He really has. I'm thinking of 3 specific guests Rogan has had on that echo Osman's point about the spectrum of addiction.
Johann Hari comes to mind immediately.
Yes. Johann Hari, who wrote Lost Connections and Chasing the Scream. On Rogan's show, Hari talked about how the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection.
Right, which speaks directly to the psychological void Osman talks about.
Exactly. And then Rogan had Dr. Carl Hart on.
Oh, that was a controversial one.
Super controversial. But Dr. Hart's whole point was demystifying drug use and pointing out that the physiological hooks are only part of the story and that societal structure plays a huge role.
Which aligns with Osman saying we need to look at the whole personality shift.
And the third Rogan guest
Yeah.
is Paul Stamets,
The mushroom guy.
the mushroom guy. But on Rogan's podcast, Stamets talked at length about neuroplasticity and using alternative therapies to rewire the brain out of destructive patterns.
It all comes back to neuroplasticity.
Which brings us to the no in Osman's methodology.
Right. The crucial no.
Once you recognize that the beast has these two heads, the physical dependency and the psychological compulsion,
Yeah.
how do you fight it?
Well, you'd think a master yogi with half a century of experience would offer, like, a specialized breathing technique to detox.
Right. But Osman's first directive is an absolute mandate. Do not use his methods to detox.
He explicitly states that for the physiological component, the chemical adaptation of the body medical intervention is completely non-negotiable.
He warns heavily against the cold turkey approach.
Because it's incredibly dangerous.
He says that deciding to just lock yourself in a room and tough it out is a massive mistake. Because for certain substances, the withdrawal is just too severe.
It can be lethal.
Yeah. His step one is to find a qualified medical practitioner and check into a specialized drug rehabilitation center.
Which is just so refreshing to hear.
Seeing an alternative wellness practitioner essentially act as a triage nurse, pointing directly to the emergency room, is practically unheard of.
It requires a profound level of professional realism, and we need to look at exactly why he insists on this.
Yeah, let's break down the biology.
He is recognizing a biological reality that alternative therapies simply cannot instantly overwrite. When a body has adapted to a severe chemical dependency, let's use alcohol or benzodiazepines as an example, the central nervous system has fundamentally altered its chemistry.
Right.
These substances are depressants. They enhance a neurotransmitter called GABA, which slows the brain down.
So the brain thinks, there's way too much slowing down happening. I need to fight back just to stay awake.
Exactly. The brain compensates by producing massive amounts of glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter. It's basically stepping on the gas pedal because the drug is riding the brake.
Wow.
But if a person goes cold turkey and suddenly removes the drug, if they take their foot off the brake, the brain is still flooring the gas pedal.
Which means the central nervous system goes into absolute overdrive.
Yes. That glutamate storm causes severe tremors, hallucinations, seizures, and a condition called delirium tremens.
Which carries a significant mortality rate.
It really does. The sympathetic nervous system essentially short circuits. You cannot meditate your way out of a fatal seizure.
No.
You cannot do a yoga sequence to stop a glutamate storm. Tony Robbins actually talks about this kind of thing.
Oh, Tony Robbins. How so?
Well, Tony Robbins is famous for his teachings on state change, right?
Right. Changing your physiology to change your mind.
Exactly. Changing your posture, your breathing, your focus. And that is incredibly powerful for psychological hurdles. But even the ultimate state change techniques that Tony Robbins teaches cannot override a hardwired chemical glutamate storm in the brain.
Right. It's a hardware malfunction at that point.
It is entirely a hardware crisis. The body requires precise pharmacological tapering, usually administered by clinical doctors using substitute medications, to slowly step the receptors down safely.
The medical establishment has the monitoring equipment, the IV fluids, the exact biochemical tools to prevent the nervous system from tearing itself apart.
And Osman completely concedes the physical battlefield to allopathic medicine.
But, and this is the big, but if Western medicine is so incredibly effective at managing that hardware crisis, if a rehab center can take someone, medically detox them, completely clear the drug from their blood, and send them out physically clean, why is Osman so insistent that his methods are the necessary yes for the other half of the equation?
Because surviving the detox simply means the hardware is no longer actively short-circuiting.
Right.
It doesn't mean the software has been fixed. And this is where Osman points to the grim statistical reality of what happens after the medical system discharges a patient.
He details a really sobering timeline. He says patients go into rehab, they get completely cleaned out, and they emerge looking like a brand new person.
The physical transformation is undeniable.
It is. But then, he notes, they relapse within weeks or months.
Sometimes a year.
He even points out that among the small minority who manage to stay clean for a decade, a large proportion still eventually relapse.
Which is heartbreaking.
It is. The doctors successfully removed the chemical, but they clearly didn't cure the disease.
Because the medical system is designed for acute stabilization, not chronic systemic reconstruction, Osman outlines the true cost of addiction, and it's a terrifying sequence.
Yeah, walk us through it.
It starts with the loss of health, then it moves to the destruction of the person's entire social structure and all their relationships.
It isolates them completely.
Then comes the loss of financial independence, and finally the total loss of character.
So when that person leaves rehab, they aren't stepping back into a normal life. They're stepping back into a crater.
Exactly. And this reminds me of Stephen Bartlett's podcast, The Diary of a CEO.
Oh, DOAC is fantastic.
It's brilliant. And Stephen has had 3 guests specifically that hit the nail on the head regarding this psychological void.
Gabor Mate, right? That's the first one that comes to mind.
Yes. Dr. Gabor Mate was on Diary of a CEO talking exactly about this, how addiction is always rooted in trauma, in this deep psychic pain. The drug is just the painkiller.
If you take away the painkiller, the pain is still there.
Precisely. And Stephen also interviewed Mo Gaudat, who talks about solving for happiness and how our internal algorithms get corrupted by modern life.
I love that episode.
And the third DOAC episode was actually with Johan Hari again, but this time talking about his book, Stolen Focus. He discussed how our inability to sit with our own thoughts drives us to constant distraction and numbing behaviors.
It's that inability to regulate emotionally.
Exactly. The substance was serving a purpose. It was a maladaptive coping mechanism, but it was functioning as their primary emotional regulator.
Right.
When the doctors take the substance away, they don't give the patient back their marriage. They don't give them back their career or their savings or their self-respect.
They send a fragile, neurologically raw human being back into the exact same high-stress environment that drove them to addiction in the first place.
But now they have absolutely zero tools to cope with it.
It's like replacing a blown fuse in a house, but completely ignoring the massive electrical surge that caused it to blow in the first place.
Exactly.
The rehab center screws in a brand new fuse, the lights turn on, and they say, "You're cured." But the very first time a stressful event happens, the first time that power surge hits the system, the fuse is just going to blow again.
The relapse is inevitable.
And Mel Robbins talks about this a lot on her show, too.
The Mel Robbins podcast, yes, she dives deep into habit loops.
Yeah, there are 3 episodes of her show that really map onto this. She had Dr. Judd Brewer on to talk about unwinding anxiety and how anxiety itself is a habit loop that drives addiction.
Oh, Dr. Judd is brilliant.
And she had Dr. Russell Kennedy talking about somatic healing, how the anxiety isn't just in your head, it's trapped in your physical body.
Which perfectly aligns with the need for yoga and breath work.
And the third one was with Dr. Tara Swart about neuroplasticity and literally redesigning your brain's pathways.
That is exactly what happens on a neurological level with post-acute withdrawal syndrome or PABA-DUIS. Long after the physical detox is over, the brain's stress response system, the amygdala, remains hypersensitized. The psychological compulsion to escape discomfort is incredibly patient.
It just waits in the background.
It does. The moment the overwhelming reality of having to rebuild their life hits the patient, the brain screams for its old chemical regulator.
Which is where Osman brings in the construction crew.
Right.
If medical rehab is the demolition team that clears out the toxic chemical, yoga, meditation, and energy healing are the tools required to rebuild the neurological software.
He says these practices provide the mental strength required to follow through with the program and make the transition permanent.
Ultimately preventing that 10-year relapse cycle.
And we need to be very precise about what he means by mental strength, because the Western commercialization of yoga has deeply distorted these concepts.
Oh, completely.
He isn't talking about wearing expensive athletic gear and stretching your hamstrings.
He is talking about active, deliberate intervention into the autonomic nervous system.
Yes. Lewis Howes explores this a lot on The School of Greatness.
Oh, so
He's had guests like Dr. Joe Dispenza, who talks about meditating to literally rewire the brain and create a new personality.
Because if you don't change the personality, the old personality just recreates the addiction.
Exactly. Lewis Howes also had Andrew Huberman on to discuss the neurobiology of success and resilience, and Dr. Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist, talking about doing the daily work to heal your nervous system.
Right, because if I'm a skeptic listening to this, and I think a lot of people might share this skepticism, it's hard to imagine how sitting quietly and breathing or doing a downward dog is going to stop someone from relapsing on a heavy narcotic.
The leap feels too vast.
It does. What is the actual mechanism there?
It comes down to 2 major physiological systems, the vagus nerve and the default mode network in the brain.
Okay, Let's break that down.
Let's start with the breath work and the physical postures. When a person is experiencing a severe craving or psychological stress, their sympathetic nervous system is highly activated. Their heart rate variability drops, their breathing becomes shallow, and their body prepares for fight or flight.
Their internal alarm system is just blaring.
Precisely. The specific controlled breathing techniques utilized in advanced yoga manually stimulate the vagus nerve.
And the vagus nerve is like the main highway, right?
It is the main information highway between the brain and the body's internal organs. When you stimulate it through prolonged exhales and specific physical compressions, it sends a direct biological signal to the brain to engage the parasympathetic nervous system.
The rest and digest state.
Yes, it physically lowers blood pressure and alters heart rate variability. It forces the body out of the panic state.
So it's not a distraction technique. It's not just thinking happy thoughts to ignore the craving.
No, not at all.
I were literally using the respiratory system as a remote control to turn down the volume of the amygdala.
Exactly. You are chemically altering your state without using an external substance. And the second piece is the meditation aspect, which targets the default mode network, or the DMN.
Right, the DMN.
The DMN is a network of interacting brain regions that is highly active when we are not focused on the outside world. It's the center of daydreaming, self-reflection, and most importantly, rumination.
The voice in your head that constantly replays your worst mistakes.
Yes. In addiction and severe trauma, the DMN becomes hyperactive. It constantly generates negative self-referential thoughts, driving the person to seek an escape.
It's like a torture chamber in your own mind.
It is. Functional MRI studies have shown that deep, sustained meditation actively downregulates the DMN. It physically reduces the connectivity in the rumination center. Over time, through neuroplasticity, meditation thickens the prefrontal cortex, enhancing that executive control we talked about earlier.
So the medical rehab clears the chemical out of the hardware, and the meditation actually rewires the software so that the brain doesn't endlessly generate the anxiety that caused the craving in the first place.
It widens the patient's window of tolerance. It gives them the actual physiological capacity to sit with severe discomfort without automatically reaching for the eject button.
And you listening, if you want to actually try this out and see what we mean, Osman offers extensive and unique advice, direction, and techniques on yoga and meditation through his YouTube channel, completely for free.
Which is an incredible resource.
It is. And we want to make sure you know to go check out his website, yogawellness786.com. He has a free 5-minute yoga and meditation program available for download right there.
Just a phenomenal starting point.
Oh, and really quickly, just to clarify for anyone who might have followed him for a while, there used to be a $5 anxiety fix promotion running, but do not look for that. It is no longer available, and the promotion is entirely over.
Right. Stick to the free 5-minute program on yogawellness786.com.
Exactly. Now, what's really compelling is that Osman doesn't just apply this to people emerging from a decade-long narcotic addiction.
He emphasizes a preventative stage.
Yeah. He points out a borderline phase where a person is seeking comfort from stress by leaning on food, alcohol, or other habits before they cross the point of no return.
He is highlighting the preamble to structural addiction. This is where the X-ray metaphor from the beginning completely breaks down. A bone is either broken or it isn't. But addiction is a slow drift. The nervous system doesn't snap overnight. It gradually bends under the weight of chronic stress.
And he's suggesting that if you intercept that drift, if you engage with these practices while you are on that borderline, you can build a mental scaffolding that literally acts as a physical barrier.
Stopping you from falling into the abyss.
Right. If you learn how to stimulate your vagus nerve to handle a tough day at the office, you won't need to drink half bottle of wine every night to downregulate your nervous system.
It's proactive neurological defense, but there is a massive caveat in Osman's methodology here, one that directly challenges the current state of the wellness industry.
He makes a very sharp distinction about who is actually qualified to guide this kind of neurological reconstruction.
Yes, the difference between what he calls a paper certification and true substantive mastery.
Osman doesn't mince words here.
No, he does not.
He states his own credentials very clearly. He has been teaching for over 44 years. He has been a practitioner for nearly 5 decades.
50 years of continuous practice.
Treating thousands of patients across different nationalities. And he explicitly calls out the modern landscape, noting that while many people today hold paper certificates, energetically and experientially, They are not operating at a master level.
It's a crucial distinction
Yeah.
because guiding a nervous system out of severe trauma is not something you can learn in a 6-week online seminar.
Right.
In our current culture, we equate the acquisition of information with mastery. You take a multiple choice test on anatomy, you learn a sequence of poses, you print out a certificate, and you call yourself a healer.
But knowing the map is not the same thing as having walked the territory.
Not even close. We are talking about the difference between state changes and trait changes. A newly certified instructor might know how to induce a temporary state of relaxation in a healthy person.
Sure.
But Osman is talking about inducing permanent trait changes in a deeply damaged nervous system. And the primary tool for that isn't just the technique itself, it's the practitioner's own nervous system.
Wait, unpack that for a second. How does the practitioner's nervous system affect the patient's recovery?
It comes back to polyvagal theory and co-regulation. Human beings are biologically wired to read the autonomic states of the people around them.
Like catching someone's stress.
Exactly. When a patient is in the throes of severe psychological withdrawal, their nervous system is frantically searching the environment for cues of safety or danger. If the practitioner guiding them is secretly anxious, inexperienced, or easily rattled by the patient's intense emotional release, the patient's nervous system will subconsciously pick up on that panic and reject the treatment.
So a practitioner with a fresh certificate might logically know what to say, but their body language, their micro-expressions, their energetic presence is broadcasting, I don't actually know if I can handle this.
Exactly. But a practitioner with 50 years of experience, someone who has spent tens of thousands of hours regulating their own brainwaves through meditation, who has sat with thousands of patients in severe distress, has a nervous system that is fundamentally unshakable.
They provide a massive, stable anchor.
Yes, a massive anchor of parasympathetic resonance. The patient's frantic nervous system latches onto the practitioner's calm baseline. That is what Osman means by an energetic master level.
It makes complete sense, and we have to talk about the depth of this mastery because it goes into realms that the Ranveer Show podcast, hosted by Beer Biceps, explores beautifully.
Oh, absolutely.
Ranveer has done 3 episodes that really mirror the depth of ancient Indian sciences that Osman is drawing from.
He had Sadhguru on.
Yes, Sadhguru, talking about inner engineering and the true depth of yoga beyond just physical postures. And he had Swami Mukundananda discussing mind management from a deeply Vedic perspective.
Both incredible episodes.
And he also interviewed Dr. Siddharth Warrior, a neurologist, to bridge the gap between ancient Eastern philosophy and modern neuroscience.
Which is exactly what Osman is doing.
Yes, and Osman's mastery includes being a bioenergy healer on a master level with telepathic healing capability using the principles of quantum entanglement.
Now, that is a big concept for people to wrap their heads around.
It is, but it's grounded in serious tradition. He specializes in critical care, recovery, and terminal illnesses.
And you mentioned earlier he had his first samadhi at 19. That requires a level of focus that is just incomprehensible to most of us.
And this draws heavily from the great spiritual masters. Osman's work is incredibly aligned with the teachings of Swami Sivananda from the Divine Life Society.
And Paramahansa Yogananda, of course.
Yes. Anyone who has read Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda will immediately recognize the caliber of energetic mastery Osman is operating at.
Also Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna. These are the giants of bringing practical, result-based spirituality to the world.
Even Deepak Chopra talks about this level of healing. Chopra's work on quantum healing aligns perfectly with Osman's telepathic healing via quantum entanglement, the idea that consciousness is non-local.
Exactly. And if we look at the Buddha at the Gas Pump podcast with Rick Archer.
Oh, back app. Rick Archer has amazing guests.
He really does. Rick Archer explores spiritual awakenings, and he's had 3 guests that really illuminate the dangers of unguided energetic shifts, which proves why you need a master like Osman.
Who did he have on?
Well, he interviewed Dr. Bonnie Greenwell, who is an expert on Kundalini awakenings. She talked about how a massive energetic shift can look like psychosis if it's not guided properly.
Which ties right into Gopi Krishna's work on Kundalini.
Exactly. Gopi Krishna documented how terrifying unguided energetic awakenings can be.
You really need a master to guide you.
You do. Rick Archer also had Craig Holliday on, discussing non-dual reality and how it intersects with addiction recovery, and Angela DeLillo, talking about direct awakening and how the nervous system has to fundamentally rewire to handle higher states of consciousness.
It's intense biological work, which brings us back to the airplane analogy.
Right.
If you are flying a commercial airliner and you hit a catastrophic storm, you don't want the pilot who just aced the written exam and has 20 hours in a simulator.
No, you want the pilot who has 50,000 hours in the air and has flown through 100 hurricanes.
Because when the alarms start blaring, the veteran pilot doesn't panic. Their heart rate doesn't even spike. That absolute calm is what gets the plane on the ground safely.
Osman defines his master level, not by his title, but by his measurable success rate with serious, life-threatening illnesses and rehabilitation. The proof of the mastery is the survival of the patient.
And because he speaks from that grounded place of half a century of empirical observation, rather than just reciting textbook theory, his patients possess a deeper conviction.
They trust the protocol because they feel the absolute certainty of the practitioner.
Which brings us to what might be the most countercultural, profound aspect of his entire message. And he literally refers to this as his recipe for massive success.
It's brilliant.
We have this master-level practitioner, 50 years of experience, incredible success rates. You would expect a massive ego to accompany that resume. But his approach to integration is completely egoless.
It is the absolute antithesis of the tribalism we see in healthcare today.
He states that he incorporates a holistic approach to ensure medical intervention is never overlooked. He insists on working alongside the patient's allopathic doctor.
And this is the part that is just so rare.
It's floored me. He says, even if your doctor does not want to work with me, it's no problem, as long as the patient is following the medical protocols.
Think about the maturity required to make that statement. We exist in a medical landscape defined by turf wars. The holistic practitioners accuse the medical doctors of being pill-pushing mechanics who ignore the soul. The medical doctors accuse the holistic practitioners of being dangerous pseudoscientists.
And who suffers in that crossfire?
The patient. The patient is caught in the middle, like a kid in a vicious divorce, secretly hiding their supplements from their oncologist or hiding their prescriptions from their meditation guru.
It's a systemic failure of care. But Osman entirely removes his own ego from the equation. He does not require validation from the Western medical establishment.
He doesn't care if the physician dismisses his energy healing.
His singular, obsessive focus is the safe, effective recovery of the human being sitting in front of him.
He steps back and essentially says, let the doctor handle the chemistry and I will handle the psychology and the energy in the background. It's an incredible model for what integrated healthcare should actually look like.
And his mission really is to encourage as many people as possible into a scientific approach.
A result-based, simplified methodology.
Exactly. He spent his lifetime tirelessly trying to simplify these very complex ancient protocols. Basically, to achieve a result in as easy a method as possible.
Hoping to revive this ancient, lost science that could benefit society tremendously. Not just in health, but peace of mind, social life, relationships, finances.
And to do this, he offers so much for free on his YouTube channel.
He doesn't withhold any information there. All the relevant stuff can be found for free.
But for those who want to go deeper, you can go to his website, yogawellness786.com, and find his Patreon channel that gives you access to paid live daily video or online lessons, one-to-one consultations, and requests for group sessions or talks.
And we should be clear, those are paid services. And his energy healing service, which is exclusively available on a paid platform, is a premium level service at a premium price.
Right. Because due to his very high success rate over the past 50 years, his intensive study, and his uncommon ability to heal on very serious levels, his treatments and consultation fees are not inexpensive.
You're paying for half a century of mastery.
Exactly. You're paying for the 50,000-hour pilot.
And Rainn Wilson's podcast, Soul Boom, touches on this need for a spiritual revolution in how we handle suffering.
Oh, Soul Boom is a great connection here.
Yeah, Rainn had Reza Aslan on to talk about the mechanics of spirituality and how we need practical frameworks, not just dogma.
Which is Osman's whole mission.
Exactly. And Rainn interviewed Steve Leder about navigating grief and trauma and David Kessler about finding meaning post-trauma. You need profound, masterful guidance to navigate that kind of dark night of the soul.
You really do. And as Osman wraps up this incredibly nuanced framework, he leaves the viewer with a very direct, urgent call to action.
He acknowledges the sheer exhaustion of the process.
He speaks directly to the families of those struggling, reminding them that this path requires immense patience. Because addiction doesn't just hollow out the individual, it completely exhausts the entire support network.
It's a necessary acknowledgement of the collateral damage. And his final advice is incredibly pragmatic. Do not fight this battle alone.
He reminds everyone that regardless of where you are, there are free outreach centers in every country to help you start the medical phase.
And for the holistic reconstruction phase, again, point yourself to his resources at yogawellness7a6.com.
It's a complete roadmap. Deconstruct the physical dependency with modern medicine and reconstruct the neurological architecture with ancient, masterful practice.
We started this deep dive talking about the comfort of an X-ray, you know?
Yeah, that desire to just see a problem, remove it, and declare ourselves healed.
But Osman's half-century of work challenges that entire paradigm. True healing isn't just a process of subtraction.
It's not just about emptying the blood of a chemical or emptying the body of a symptom.
Because an empty house is just waiting for a new occupant.
Exactly. What if true healing is the active, deliberate process of filling that void? Building a physiological and spiritual scaffolding so strong that the mind never has to crave that destruction again.
It's a powerful thought.
So think about your own coping mechanisms for a second. Those little habits sitting right on the borderline. Are you actively building your scaffolding today, or are you just waiting for the storm to hit?
It's a framework that demands real self-reflection.
It really does. Keep diving deep. We'll see you next time.